Amen. That was a golf clap, y'all. Let's try that again. Golf claps are good for golf, not good for praising Jesus, I think. Glad to see everyone here this morning. Glad you made church a priority today. Last week we talked about priorities, didn't we? Can you imagine if this afternoon you get home and you get up tomorrow and you get ready for your day and your banker calls you? And usually that's bad for me, but let's say your banker calls you and says, we've had an anonymous donor that has decided to give you some money. And what he's decided to do is give you 86,400 pennies every single day you get up. In the morning, when you get up, there's going to be 84,600 pennies deposited in your account. You realize that is $864 a day. That's $6,000 a month. That's nearly $315,000 a year. But here's the catch. Every day you get that money, but at midnight every day, any of that money you didn't spend is gone. It's taken away. See, that's exactly what God does every single day. There is 86,400 seconds deposited into your life every day. And once it's used up, once that day's gone, once that 1,444 minutes is used up in your day, it's gone. You can't get it back. All that you have then is what you traded that time for. That's all you have left. See, time has never been as precisely measured as it is today. Do you realize that before trains, before the locomotives, and before trains started going back and forth across our country, that time wasn't really even that important? You know that towns during that time, cities and all, set their own time. So, in other words, we might decide here in Chocolaw it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and a few miles down the road in Oxford, they may have decided it was 4:30 at the same time. And then over there in Anniston, they may say it's 5 o'clock. Each town set their own time. It just wasn't that important. Before 1790, less than 10% of Americans even owned a clock. And most of the clocks in existence then didn't have a minute hand on them. All it had was an hour hand. It just wasn't that big a deal. But then the trains came along, and trains started running on schedules, and they started posting train schedules. That's where we get the phrase "time's up" from, and "time's a wasted" from the trains, from the train schedules. Then time became much more important because people needed to know exactly when to be somewhere because of the train. And did you know that before the late 19th century, a wristwatch was almost unheard of? Nobody had hardly ever even heard of one because they didn't use them. And now we have GPS systems, computer systems, telephone networks, and all sorts of things that run on precise time. Almost exactly to the nanosecond time. And it's very important for that. All these computerized things we have to have precise time measurements to even operate. So we've come a long way in the area of measuring time. I wonder if we've come a long way in the area of using time. I wonder if the time I traded yesterday for whatever I did yesterday was worthy of the day I gave for it. Last week we talked about something I thought was very important. That's realigning our priorities. We talked about realigning our priorities. And today it's about realigning our time. You can schedule your time as perfectly and precisely as you want to do whatever it is you think is important. But if your priorities aren't right, it's not going to matter what you spend your time on. So that's why this is so important. And the psalmist in Psalm 118:24, if you want me to turn there, we'll be in that verse all morning, really. Psalm 118:24 says, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." That gets us to our key takeaway for today. Every day is God's investment in our life. Every day is God's investment in our life. Whether you realize it or whether you got up this morning thinking about it or not. God gave you this time that you're spending in church. And if He blesses you with time after church, He's going to give you the time you're going to go eat lunch with. And then He's going to give you the time to do whatever else it is you're going to do. But that time is literally a gift from God that He has invested in your life. So there's some things I want us to think about in relation to time. First, I want us to be thankful that you have the day. Be thankful that you have the day. Let's look at our verse again. The first part of Psalm 118:24 says, "This is the day the Lord has made." Now that word "made" is the same word used in the first couple of chapters of Genesis to describe how God made all of creation. So from that we understand God made time. So if He made it and He gives it to you as a gift, we certainly ought to be thankful that we have it. Be thankful for the day. Unfortunately, as part of being a minister and an ordained minister and a pastor, I do funerals sometimes. And nothing ever brings you into the realization of how precious the time God's given you is than to go to a funeral service. Because you realize that person's time is over. They can never get it back. What they spent their entire life on is gone. No more chances. No more going back. No more realigning our priorities. That's why I feel like it's so important, and that's why this whole series is about, it's aligning or realigning our life with God's plan and God's purpose. Because if we spend the time He gives us on anything else, it's going to be time wasted. And God created the time. He gives it to us as a gift. But guess what? He does not play favorites. God does not play favorites. Let me explain. That picture right there, I'll have to read it. It is a Patek Philippe Sky Moon Platinum watch. You think that sounds very expensive? Well, you'd be right. That watch sold last year for $1.49 million. That's million with an M. Big M. I'll go ahead and capitalize that M. That's a lot of money. That's more money than I ever made in my life, and some dude spent that. It auctioned for that. I wonder if they got to test drive that watch first before they bought it. That watch is thought to be the most complicated, precise wristwatch in the world. It has over 600 moving, workable parts. There's over 600 parts in that watch. Some of them are so small you need a microscope to look at them. It's unbelievable how precise and how intricate this watch is. In fact, they only make 2 of them a year. They only make 2 of those a year. And I look at that watch and I think, 686 parts. Most complicated wristwatch made, $1.49 million. And the guy that bought that watch, he's got the same amount of time in a day as the guy with a $20 Timex. God doesn't play favorites. He gave that guy 1,444 minutes in a day, just like He gave me 1,444 minutes in my day, and I don't even have a watch. I got one, but the battery's dead. It doesn't work. It's paperweight. We all have the same amount of time every day. And you know what? Nobody has enough time to do everything they want to do. But I promise you this. You have all the time you need to do what God wants you to do. Hey, I'm preaching to myself. Many of you that I'm close to, you know my schedule. You know not a lot of free time in there. But if I'll realign my priorities and I'll realign my time with what God gave me and gifted me that time for, not only will I be more productive, I'll be happier while I'm doing it. So first, be thankful that you have the day. Then be careful how you spend the day. Back in our verse again. I want you to understand that Psalm 118:24 is not talking about yesterday. That's gone. It's talking about the here and now. It says, this is the day that the Lord has made. See, yesterday's a memory. Tomorrow's a possibility. The only time you really have is the time you have right now. None of us, you've heard preachers say this before, I'll say it again. None of us are promised tomorrow. In fact, you're not promised the next minute. Neither am I. And the older I get, the more I realize how valuable time is. And the psalmist in Psalm 90 must have thought the same thing. Verses 5 and 6, it says, you carry them away like a flood. They are like a sleep. In the morning they are like grass which grows up. In the morning it flourishes and grows up. In the evening it is cut down and withers. Time is valuable, but you really can't save it. You can't stretch it. You can't store it. But it's the most valuable resource that you and I have is our time. See, one of the best tips I've ever heard for spending time as wisely as possible came from James Merritt, the former Southern Baptist Convention president. He said, prioritizing your time is the best way to spend time as wisely as you can. And he advocates this. He says he does this every day and has for 30-something years. He says every day he sits down, he spends time with God, and he sits down and he makes a list of things that he needs to get done that day. And then he puts them in order by priority. He doesn't move on to number 2 until number 1's done. Now I realize that tomorrow, priority number 1 may have to be go to work. Get up and go to work. Because if that's not priority number 1 for a few days, they'll probably fire you. But he says he doesn't go to number 2 until number 1 gets done. Because if he could, number 1 really wasn't his number 1 priority, was it? And he's done that for many years and says that that works so well, he's more productive now than he's ever been. And I think if we would really sit down, and I want to look back at my yesterday, and I want to say, when I got up yesterday morning, what was my priorities of things to do yesterday? What was it I wanted to accomplish, or what were things I needed to get done with my yesterday? And if I could put them in order, looking back retrospectively, if I could put my yesterday's priorities in order, and then I could take those priorities and put them up against what I actually did yesterday, I wonder how they'd match up. I wonder how they'd match up. And I just imagine if I did that for a few days, I would see that I'm not very good at prioritizing my time. So maybe let's try this. And I'm going to try this week. I'm going to start tomorrow doing this. Tonight I'm going to sit down. I'm going to think of all the things I've got to get done tomorrow, being Monday. And I'm going to put them in order. And I'm going to pray that God will show me what order to put them in. See, if we do things on God's time, we do things in His order, we'll be better at everything we do. Zig Ziglar said it like this: if you will do what you ought to do when you ought to do it, then you can do what you want to do when you want to do it. I think that's about right. We could do what God wants us to do. We'd be more productive and we'd be happier too. I want us to be thankful that I have the day. I want us to be careful how you spend the day. But I want us to be joyful in how you approach the day. Psalm 118:24 concludes by saying, let us rejoice and be glad in it. That's something I try to teach my kids, you know. My youngest daughter there is 11. You're 11, right? Excellent. Got one right. I got a dad point on that one. Got one right. If I could just remember that anniversary now, I'd be in high cotton, wouldn't I? I I try to teach my kids that no matter how bad your day is, and hey, let's face it, we're in a sinful, fallen, evil world. Bad things happen every day. There's going to be things happen to you that you didn't plan for. Amen? There's going to be things happen to you probably on a daily basis that you wish didn't happen. Maybe it's as simple as that moron that pulled over and cut me off in traffic and then turned. Right? You get behind that guy too? It's just me. It may be something as big as that call from the doctor's office. When you get that bad report you didn't want to get. But bad things happen to all of us. Here's what I try to teach my kids. You can be joyful in it. And why is that? Because that time God gave you on that bad day you're having is the same time God gifted you with on the best day of your life. So if He gifted you with that time, He gave it to you for a purpose. He gave it to you for a reason. Because He wanted you to use it for His glory. And doesn't His Word teach if we do that, we'll be happy? Doesn't it teach that? Or am I reading the wrong Bible? I think it certainly does. Because even when our plans don't work out, when life gets in the way, we can still have joy. I know it because God's Word right here tells me I can. I can rejoice. And you think God would tell you to do something you couldn't do? He says rejoice and be glad in it. Now why would God tell you that if you couldn't do it? Here's the thing. We've got to get our priorities in order. We've got to realign our time. And remember, we have so many things to be thankful for. As Miss Kelly comes up, I want to share this with you. I'm a big Alabama fan. I love Alabama. It's fun to watch them win. It's not fun when they lose. If you like college football, you're the same way about your team. But one of the great college football coaches ever, Paul Bear Bryant, shortly after he died, his family found in his wallet a crinkled up, folded up, yellowed old piece of paper. And they unfolded it. It was obvious that he'd read it many, many times. The paper was worn, it was folded, crinkled. And it said this: "This is the beginning of a new day. God has given me this day to use as I will. I can waste it or use it for good. What I do today is very important because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. When tomorrow comes, this day will be gone forever, leaving something in its place that I have traded for it. I want it to be a gain, not a loss, good, not evil, success, not failure, in order that I shall not regret the price I paid for it." We trade every day of our life for something. What's that something going to be? You're going to trade the next few moments of your life for something.